Denver International Airport, one of America's busiest aviation hubs, unexpectedly suspended operations due to undisclosed security reasons. Thousands of passengers were evacuated, the no-fly zone expanded for miles, and military forces were overwhelmingly deployed. But the hidden truth is more terrifying than the public could imagine. According to leaks from maintenance staff, a massive underground structure with bizarre technology was discovered deep beneath the airport. Walls covered in alien symbols, self-operating machinery, and a spherical core that absorbs all scanning energy all suggest an entity not of this Earth. The most shocking part? This structure may have existed for thousands of years, and Denver Airport might have been constructed specifically to conceal it. When scientists attempted to approach it, they experienced memory loss, widespread equipment malfunctions, and even an entire research team disappearing without a trace. Could this be a secret government facility, relics of an ancient civilization, or a portal to another world? Why is all information being so strictly censored? Let's uncover the frightening truth that no one dares to reveal. From the very beginning, Denver International Airport raised more questions than answers. When it opened in 1995, it instantly became the largest airport in the United States by land area. But even more unusual than its size were the rumors that followed. Locals, conspiracy theorists, and even former airport contractors began to whisper about strange choices in its construction, unexplained features, and things buried underground that no one wanted to discuss. One of the first signs that something didn't add up was the airport's dedication marker. Set in a granite capstone near the south entrance, the plaque includes the symbol of the Freemasons and the names of their grand lodges. That alone was strange, but what confused people was a line underneath. New World Airport Commission. No such group exists today, and even back then it wasn't a real organization. Some say the name was a tribute to a classical music piece. Others believe it was a code, a quiet nod to the so-called New World Order, a secret society that many claim is working to control the world behind the scenes. The marker is not the only strange element. Inside the airport, visitors are greeted by murals that look like scenes from a dystopian nightmare. One painting shows a soldier in a gas mask holding a machine gun, surrounded by fire and frightened children. Another shows animals lying dead, forests burning, and people crying. The artist says the message is one of hope and peace, but most people who see it don't feel a sense of peace. They feel uneasy, like there's something darker hiding beneath the surface. Then there's the horse. A massive 32-foot-tall blue Mustang statue with glowing red eyes stands just outside the airport. Locals call it Blucifer. The artist who created it died in a freak accident while finishing the sculpture. A piece broke off and severed an artery in his leg, killing him before the work was completed. His death only added to the sense that something was off about this airport. But the most disturbing part of the Denver International Airport story doesn't involve art or symbols. It lies in the foundation itself. During the early stages of construction, 5 buildings were reportedly built incorrectly. Instead of tearing them down, developers made a strange choice. They buried them. Entire concrete structures were entombed underground, and the airport was built over them. To this day, no one has provided a full explanation. Official records simply call them abandoned construction zones. But what kind of modern construction project buries buildings rather than removing them? It's an expensive, inefficient, and highly unusual move. That decision continues to feed rumors that the airport was not built to serve travelers, but to hide something else, something beneath. Over the years, these whispers have taken many forms: secret tunnels, military bunkers, underground bases for the elite. Some even say the airport sits on top of an alien structure or a long-forgotten site of ancient power. While most officials dismiss these claims as nonsense, one thing is certain. The Denver International Airport was never just an airport in the minds of the people. It has always felt like a mask, something built to hide another purpose. And for decades, no one could prove otherwise. That changed the day construction workers hit a wall that didn't belong. But what did they find behind that wall? And why did the government respond in less than 3 hours? In the next chapter, we go underground, into a place that shouldn't exist. It began like any other maintenance shift. A small team of engineers had been assigned to inspect a lower utility tunnel beneath one of the service zones at Denver International Airport. They expected to check wiring, ventilation, and temperature sensors. Nothing out of the ordinary. But as they moved further into the tunnel, their flashlights caught something strange. A section of wall ahead looked newer than the others. It was smooth, seamless, and made of a material that didn't match the rest of the concrete structure. When one of them tapped the surface, it echoed. Not like a wall should. More like a thin layer covering something hollow behind it. The workers called in their supervisor, and after some brief discussion, they were granted permission to drill. Less than 2 hours later, they broke through the barrier. Behind it was not a crawl space or utility shaft. It was a vertical shaft descending far deeper than any airport facility should reach. There were no ladders, no lights, no visible infrastructure. By the next morning, a proper descent was arranged. A special lift was lowered, and a small camera drone was sent down first. The feed showed what no one expected: a massive underground space with hallways, walls, and strange metallic surfaces reflecting dim light. The layout was symmetrical, but the design was like nothing ever recorded in modern engineering. When the team finally entered the chamber, they realized this was not some forgotten military bunker. It was something entirely different. The structure was active. Small machines lined the walls, smooth, rounded, and still humming. None of them were plugged into anything. Some blinked softly with unfamiliar symbols. Others glowed like they were waiting for input. The materials felt cold, but responded faintly to human touch. Everything was built with impossible precision. Not a single screw, bolt, or weld could be found. The shapes curved perfectly into each other, as if grown rather than built. More unsettling were the symbols. Etched into every surface were glyphs, spirals, angular marks, and repeating patterns that made some workers dizzy if they stared too long. They didn't match any known language, mathematical set, or art style. One engineer compared them to both music notation and ancient Sumerian carvings, but nothing fit exactly. A deeper chamber was found at the center of the facility. In the center of that space stood a large spherical object, approximately 3 meters tall, smooth, and featureless. It was held in place by 3 arms extending from the floor. Around it were terminals with pulsing lights and panels that responded when someone stepped near. No one could explain what this place was. It was built with intention, but by whom? And for what purpose? Initial theories suggested it might be an abandoned Cold War facility, but none of the materials matched. Others thought it could be a secret experiment, but the design didn't follow any known military or scientific convention. Then came the most disturbing thought. What if it wasn't abandoned at all? If this structure wasn't made by us, and it wasn't left behind by history, then who or what is using it now? In the next chapter, the environment begins to react, and reality itself starts to shift. At first, the team thought their instruments were malfunctioning. A laser rangefinder used to measure the central chamber kept giving different results each time. The distance from the entrance to the sphere shifted by as much as 3 meters, even though no one had moved anything. A technician switched to manual tools, but the readings still changed. Then, someone noticed something worse. The floor plan had started to shift. Passages that led straight now turned slightly left. A hallway that once ended at a smooth wall was suddenly open the next day, leading to another room no one had seen before. Doors that were sealed became unlocked without human input. Others disappeared completely, leaving behind smooth surfaces where entrances used to be. Inside the structure, the rules of space were becoming unreliable. More teams were sent in, hoping to map the layout. But each diagram came back different. They couldn't agree on how many chambers existed or how far the network extended. In some cases, digital mapping drones lost contact halfway through. When recovered, the devices returned with scrambled memory or footage showing impossible geometry, walls curving into themselves, floors shifting under pressure, or corridors that doubled back into themselves. Time began to break next. A researcher recorded her walk from one room to another. It should have taken 3 minutes. Her video showed 10. Her watch showed 6. The surveillance log outside the facility said it never happened. More reports came in. Digital clocks ran backward. Batteries drained without warning. Compass needles spun wildly. Someone placed a small sensor on the floor and marked its location. An hour later, it had moved 10 centimeters to the left, even though the floor itself hadn't changed. The structure wasn't just reacting to touch, it was reacting to attention. The deeper the investigation went, the more unpredictable the space became. Engineers noticed that devices would blink when looked at directly, then stop when ignored. But the most disturbing sign of change came from the people themselves. A systems analyst named Owen, who had worked underground for 3 days straight, stopped speaking. Instead, he began sketching strange diagrams on any surface he could find. Walls, paper, even his clothes. The symbols were complex, interlocking shapes filled with lines and spirals. When compared to the markings inside the structure, they matched perfectly. No one had taught him the language. He claimed he didn't know what he was doing. But each new design he made predicted changes inside the facility. One diagram showed a chamber no one had entered. A day later, it appeared. Doctors examined Owen's brain and found something even stranger. New connections had formed, synaptic paths that weren't there before. It was like his brain was learning a new system, one that hadn't been written by human hands. The situation changed from a scientific mystery to something else entirely. The government ordered tighter restrictions. Fewer people were allowed inside. Surveillance was done from a distance. But even then, the structure kept evolving. Some believed it wasn't just shifting randomly. It was adapting. But adapting to what? And if it could change reality inside its walls, could it start changing things beyond them? In the next chapter, we look at the first signs that the facility was no longer contained. The deeper the teams explored the underground structure, the more it began to feel aware. At first, it reacted in subtle ways. The lights turned on without any visible power source. Panels lit up when someone walked past. Then, the reactions became more precise. One drone passed through a hallway and triggered a sequence of symbols to flash on the wall. The pattern repeated every few seconds, almost like it was waiting for someone to respond. Linguists studied the symbols closely. They searched for grammar, patterns, or anything familiar. But the symbols matched no known language. They didn't belong to any culture, past or present. Even so, the sequence seemed too organized to be random. Each time a person entered a new room, something shifted. The temperature of nearby walls changed slightly. Console lights blinked in a rhythm that some described as calm and steady. In one chamber, a technician touched a metallic surface and felt a gentle pulse that seemed to beat like a heart. Soon after, the dreams began. People who had spent more than a few hours near the central sphere reported strange visions while sleeping. Most of them had never spoken to each other. Still, they described the same things. Spiral staircases that led nowhere. Voices that spoke without sound. Figures standing still in places where light bent in impossible ways. Doctors brought in sleep monitors and began testing everyone working below. Brain scans showed strange activity in the parts of the brain linked to language, memory, and emotion. These were not simple dreams. They felt placed, like memories from another mind. One researcher named Dr. Hayes experienced 3 nights of these visions. When he woke up, he drew a map without understanding why. The image came to him fully formed. He said it felt like someone else had passed it into his mind. What made it more disturbing was what came next. A search team followed the exact layout she drew. They found a hallway that had never been seen before. The space was real. It existed where no passage had been recorded earlier that same day. That discovery changed everything. No one could explain how a person could dream of a space that didn't exist, only to have it appear later. Some started to believe the structure was not only aware, but reaching out. It was not using words. It used symbols, space, and emotion. It used dreams. Some thought it was sending messages. Others believed it was calling people. And the ones who answered were not the same afterward. If it was trying to connect with us, then what would happen if we truly listened? In the next chapter, officials make the call to shut everything down, but the response from the structure is not what anyone expected. The moment officials realized they had lost control, they made a choice. The structure beneath Denver International Airport had stopped behaving like a place. It had become unpredictable. Its hallways changed shape. Its signals affected people's minds. Its reactions no longer seemed passive. After weeks of failed communication and increasing psychological damage to personnel, a plan was formed in secret. Military engineers designed a targeted strike. They would drop high-yield kinetic warheads into the central chamber through a maintenance shaft. The goal was not just to destroy the structure, but to break its connection to space itself. The detonation took place at exactly 3 a.m. Sensors around the airport recorded the impact, followed by a short burst of seismic energy. For a few seconds, it looked like the mission had worked. Then, everything went silent. Every monitoring system at the perimeter failed at once. Cameras, sensors, drones, and communication links went offline without warning. Backup systems also stopped working. Emergency teams tried to re-establish contact but received nothing. When a scout vehicle entered the zone, its onboard camera showed something no one could explain. The airport was gone. In its place stood a shimmering space filled with white light and no form. It wasn't fog. It wasn't fire. It was a perfect blank, as if the entire area had been erased. There were no broken runways, no debris, and no signs of collapse. The sky above it flickered. Birds refused to fly near. Wind patterns bent around the perimeter. It was no longer a place on Earth. It was something else. People started calling it the White Zone. Nothing could penetrate it. Not radio waves, not drones, not even light beyond a certain distance. Attempts to measure it failed. Instruments gave false readings or returned nothing at all. When another vehicle entered, it vanished instantly with no trace or sound. The zone did not shrink. It did not grow rapidly either. But it moved in pulses, like a living heartbeat. Every few hours, it expanded by a few centimeters. At first, officials hoped the anomaly would fade, but it stayed. And slowly, it began to respond again. People nearby reported feelings of dizziness and déjà vu. Some had dreams of places they had never seen. A few woke up with faint symbols on their skin, symbols that glowed under infrared light. What had started as a hidden structure was now something much larger. It was no longer buried. It was present, visible, and alive in ways no one could define. If the White Zone could not be destroyed or contained, then how far could it reach? In the next chapter, we look beyond Denver and ask whether this was truly the first time it had awakened. After the White Zone appeared, something changed around the world. At first, the reports came from nearby towns. People described strange feelings near the edge of the anomaly. Some said the air felt heavier. Others claimed to hear sounds with no clear source, like faint whispers or distant static. Then the stories began to spread. Hundreds of miles away, in cities with no connection to Denver, people began experiencing the same dreams as the researchers once did. They saw spiral tunnels, pulsing light, and symbols glowing in midair. The most shocking part was that these people had never been near the airport. Doctors and scientists collected data from hospitals and sleep clinics. Brain scans from different patients showed similar patterns of electrical activity. These cases came from different states, different backgrounds, but the signals were nearly identical. Something had started to link human minds, not through speech, but through thought. In Montana, a farmer found symbols burned into a frozen field. In Arizona, hikers reported a ridge of rocks that shimmered when touched. In Chicago, dozens of phones glitched at the same time, displaying spirals before shutting off. It looked like the white zone was not just a physical space. It was spreading through people, through contact, through memory. Experts called it a cognitive transmission, like a signal that could be carried inside the brain. They found that the highest number of affected cases came from cities with direct flight paths to Denver. That detail raised a chilling theory. What if the anomaly had already reached millions, long before it was discovered? For years, Denver International Airport had been one of the busiest hubs in America. Tens of millions of travelers passed through its terminals. If the underground structure had always been active, even at a low level, then every person who walked above it might have carried a small piece of it with them. This changed how the event was understood. It was no longer about a location. It was about a connection. Maybe it had never been waiting to be found. Maybe it had been reaching out all along. And now, with its core exposed, it no longer needed to hide. Some researchers warned that the white zone was not expanding through matter, but through awareness. The more people knew about it, the stronger it became. The more they dreamed of it, the more real it became in their minds. If the anomaly was spreading through thought, then could thinking about it be the very thing that helps it grow? In the next chapter, we ask the hardest question yet. Was this truly the first time in history that something like this had happened? As scientists searched for answers, they started looking backward instead of forward. If the phenomenon at Denver International Airport was spreading through thought, through dreams and symbols, then maybe it had happened before. Not recently, but long ago. The first clue came from an ice core sample in Greenland. A research team had been drilling for climate data and found a layer of frozen soil nearly 15,000 years old. Inside that layer were tiny fragments of etched stone, covered in markings that matched the symbols found inside the underground structure. These weren't random scratches. The patterns had clear repetition and symmetry. They were nearly identical to the glyphs now appearing on human skin and drawn unconsciously by affected individuals. Archaeologists were contacted, and more discoveries followed. At sites in South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia, ancient ruins were re-examined under a new light. Some carvings once dismissed as decorative were now seen as structural diagrams. A few even matched the strange layout of the chambers under Denver. The theory that emerged shocked even the most skeptical researchers. Maybe this was not the first time the structure had made contact with humanity. Maybe it had emerged before, in other forms, in other ages. It might have whispered to early civilizations, not through language, but through shared dreams and silent influence. Some historians even suggested that pieces of human culture, like mathematics or sacred geometry, might have been seeded by past exposure to this force. Patterns began to form. Civilizations that rose quickly, developed advanced knowledge, and then vanished without a clear reason all shared strange connections. Artifacts with matching symbols, myths of glowing gates, stories of visitors from inside the earth. Even the collapse of ancient empires such as the Olmecs or the Indus Valley Civilization now seem to follow similar timelines. They peaked suddenly, then disappeared. No war, no famine, just silence. If the white zone in Denver was part of a repeating cycle, then the question was no longer what caused it, but what it wanted. Was it a kind of intelligence that moved across time? Was it looking for something? Or were these cycles simply a natural rhythm that no one had noticed until now? The biggest fear came not from what had been discovered, but from what might come next. If this event had happened before, then it likely ended in disappearance, not understanding. If we are now part of a story that has played out many times before, then what role are we meant to play in its final chapter? In conclusion, we ask the ultimate question. Are we investigating something ancient, or is something ancient investigating us? The Denver International Airport saga unveils a mystery far beyond human comprehension. An ancient underground structure housing technology not of this earth, capable of altering space, time, and the human mind. From enigmatic symbols and synchronized dreams to the inexplicable white zone, evidence suggests this entity is not merely present but awakening, connecting with humanity through consciousness itself. Clues from prehistory reveal this is no isolated event but part of a recurring cycle that once shaped ancient civilizations before their mysterious vanishings. The core message is profound. We are not just exploring an enigma, an ancient intelligence may be studying us. As patterns of lost empires echo in our present, the question looms: are we wise enough to decipher this entity's purpose, or are we merely players in another chapter of its timeless story, destined to fade into the silence of history?